Harold Fannin Jr., Jacob Parrish, and Jared Ivey. We're breaking down NFL draft prospects for you today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins, and we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much.
Why are you usually do thank you. Now you do appreciate. Because I don't know. Do you see what I do when you do the intro?
Sometimes you mouth it back.
Lip sync it, right?
To give you a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much.
Appreciate every day, and I've been messing it up, or is it thank you?
Big thank you, shout out, and welcome.
And we thank you. I don't know. Anyway,
yeah.
I digress. NFL draft prospects, combine well underway here. Each one of us got a little gift of some news for our individual shows yesterday in the tune of a Khalil Shakir contract extension or Teron Armstead restructuring down his contract as he makes his retirement decision. Search for the next players like Teron Armstead's and Khalil Shakir is well underway here in Indianapolis.
You know who's not? You know who's not looking for those players? The Atlanta Falcons. Have you seen this, Kyle?
No.
So none of the Falcons' assistant offensive coaches are attending the combine, and the Falcons are using all 45 of their combine interviews on defensive players. You ever seen anything like this?
Interesting.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
Very interesting. Okay. Raheem. I saw Raheem yesterday. Did get a chance to hear him speak as I was kind of working through my own schedule, but they need some more. They need to get that side of the ball going because that's his background and strength, right?
Okay.
So
Raheem Morris, not a tush push guy, not a fan.
I don't think it's a coincidence. Some of the coaches you hear that take particular exception to it seem to be rooted on the defensive side of the football.
I just know of a certain head coach that his team does it all the time and is very successful with it. That also doesn't like it.
Like it. It's like a necessary evil of trying to win football games. Did you see the mic'd up clip from who was it? Was it Anthony Barr?
No, I didn't see this.
Somebody took a mic'd up clip on the sideline, and it was from 2018. It's like they should just put a big dude back there and put two big dudes behind him and just push the pile.
Jeez. Ahead of his time there, Anthony Barr.
Right. Is a trailblazer. Yeah. But let's we have defensive linemen who do their workouts first on Thursday. So let's start with our defensive linemen here for our prospect deep dive. We're doing Jared Ivey from Ole Miss, Harold Fannin from Bowling Green, and Jacob Parrish from Kansas State as our three prospects to dive into today. What do you think of Jared Ivey, who I kind of teased a little bit when I got into my big board yesterday in the discussion that we had on the rankings?
6'0", 5'5", 283, 33 and a 3/4 inch arms, right? Those are verified measurements from the Senior Bowl. When I think Jared Ivey, it's strength, length, and versatility, right? I mean, that's what I think he really provides, really physical, violent hands. He's got that club swim that he loves, and he's able to kind of for a guy that's not very flexible, he's pretty slippery when he's able to get around those corners using that combination. I love the run defense. I love that he can play up and down the line of scrimmage. It looks like he played a lot more in the B gaps in 23, and I didn't watch any of that tape, but I did like the reps that I did see in 24 in the B gaps because I think that's going to be an important part of his game. I think that's where you really maximize this player is leaning into his ability to rush interior gaps, play on the edge on rundowns, be a compression style rusher. guy that understands angles. There's like, that's the profile here. I don't think you're not getting a bursty, flexible guy, right? There's some segmentation to the way that he rushes. But if you lean into the versatility, I think you have a playmaker here for your front.
And then what do you think of the rush profile inside?
I like it. I like it inside. Yeah.
If you're playing over top of a tackle or shaded inside, I think the rush profile becomes more attractive than, because I agree. I don't think he has the raw explosiveness to really dictate terms to offensive tackles with the power getting, or the burst getting off the line of scrimmage. So it becomes much more of a technical rusher who has great power at his disposal to soften those angles, but the ability to, like, his exit angles off of contact on the edge have to be pretty soft for him to consistently turn the corner if he's going to rush around the outside.
Yeah. I see you mentioned Danico Autry yesterday in our conversations. I think that's a good comp. I think that leans into kind of this 2-point stance as well that he can work out of. I think about a player like Osa Digizua with Dallas. I think about Dayo Adeyembo with the Colts, as guys that can play that 4-eye, reduce inside, and make some plays. Like, I think that's your path to really unlocking what he offers. And he's started his career at Georgia Tech, pretty big recruit.
2 years at Georgia Tech. Yep.
Ole Miss got like 1 million prospects on their defense. Was this team good? Did they rank well last year?
No, believe it or not, this team that had Danico Autry, Walter Nolan, Princely, JJ, the other defensive tackles, a fringe top 100 player. They had Chris Paul at linebacker. They got Trey Amos at cornerback. Jackson Dart, who is everybody flavor of the month at quarterback right now.
And that receiver too, right? Trey Harris.
They had Trey Harris, and they also had Antoine Wells at wide receivers, another player in this draft.
Did he transfer from South Carolina? That's a player I feel like I watched a few years ago.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
So
right.
This team, they didn't make the playoff. But
they didn't. Oh, geez. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, one of the most talent-rich teams from last year in college football. Let me ask you this with Jared Ivey. I think part of the reconciliation, he's not a buzzy name at all. Now, there's people that they'll come away from his tape and you'll see they'll post it on social media and be like, "Oh, I really like Jared Ivey," but he's not like a hot name,
right?
Do you think his perception in any way kind of gets dinged by playing alongside? This is probably the most athletic front in the country. And Walter Nolan and his get off and burst, and Princely on the edge with his get off and burst. Do you think that playing next to those guys this year maybe kind of hurts some of the appreciation that could be out there from the masses on the way that he played last season?
Maybe so, but I mean, that doesn't stop all the Georgia kids every year. They all play next to each other, and they get their own individual glow. I just feel like from a media hype perspective, they want to see defensive linemen that run circles around offensive linemen, right? Like, and so like when you have
every year there's a higher variance of success rate for that profile player.
I'm not saying I understand it. I think that's
right.
Why, right? Like, I think it's just like the contested catches. Like, let's show every cool contested catch, and like, all right, well, does that happen in the NFL? Like, you need to be able to get open. So I think that's a little bit of that. And I want to make another point about him. What I really like about the idea of adding Jared Ivey to your defense is I think he diversifies your front. And opens up a lot of your options. And I think you sort of have to think about your defensive line group a little bit like a receiver core or a basketball team where you do want a variety of skill sets. I think you look at the Eagles, everybody wants the Eagles front. Well, the Eagles have all kinds of different guys that can play, multiple spots. And I think Ivey does help unlock. And, if you want to get some NASCAR packages, he's going to be a big part of that equation. If you want to, have some heavier guys playing on the edge for short yardage. Like, there's just a lot that he's going to help do to diversify your fronts and make you more multiple with your defense.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out here as we wrap up Jared Ivey. How did he rank for you?
He'll be
around him?
Remember, I've only done so. I'm up to I'm 51 players.
Yeah, so that's why I didn't ask what number he is. Just more so like what tier, what stratosphere of players that we've done is he falling amongst?
His neighbors are, and I guess I'm a little lower on this player. It feels weird saying it. Donovan Izaraku, Alfred Collins, Gray Zabel, Luther Burden. Those are his neighbors on my particular board.
Okay, this is pretty well represented.
Which I feel like my board looks different than all the other boards, but I don't know. I'm coming into this draft cycle with a rocket launcher, just watching the players, stacking them up.
Let me ask you a question. Yeah. I'll ask you the question after the break. Oh, you go to break?
Yeah, stick with us.
All right. Let me ask you a question. You are aware that the draft is in like less than 60 days?
Yeah.
How high are you going?
I might get 100, 150. I had a really good time, man. I was watching free agent pass rushers yesterday, Josh Sweat, Chase Young, and Dayo Adeyingbo, to be honest with you. I had a good time with that, man. Watching play against NFL players. It was really cool.
Yeah. Well,
you know who's not very good? Chase Young, bro. Miss me with the.
He's a pressure guy, though.
No, dude. He's a secondary pressure guy.
Big pressure guy.
Mo, you want to talk about a slow burn pass rusher? I thought I was watching some Alabama edge rusher from 2015.
Does he have heavy hands, though?
A little bit, but he doesn't
fit.
Nah, dude. Please, for $17 million a season, please no. I did love Josh Sweat though, man. That guy's got a bag.
Mm-hmm. That was a big hit for me. I had Josh Sweat top 40 in that draft class.
The challenge, he's had so many. He's been really durable like the last 4 years, except for that 2023 playoff game to the Bucks, where he had the life-threatening medical emergency that he had surgery on.
Yeah.
But he had he almost had his leg amputated and stuff like that, and ligaments in his hands. He's had some injuries, but I mean, the physical upside's always been really good. And he's still pretty young for a guy that's played
he's been in the league 6 years?
Well, he played his rookie deal, and then they did an adjustment this past year. He might have 5 or 6 years under his belt, man. He's played a lot of football, but he turns 28 this year. So I'm in on Josh Sweat.
Study is going to tell us that Josh Sweat's been in the league since 2018, which is 7 years.
Yeah, dude. He's been around a minute.
And he's been a starter in Philly the last 4. First 3 years, almost all of his rookie contract was kind of – the first year was not a redshirt year, but didn't play a lot, and then kind of became a rotational guy and has developed over the course of time. Yeah. To now 43 career sacks, Josh Sweat.
Yeah. And
I mean,
I like Josh Sweat.
Do you like
okay? Yeah, I mean, let's talk about him. Let's talk about this tight end out of Bowling Green. 6'3", 6'031", 238, 33 and an eighth inch arms. He's young, right? He doesn't turn 21 until July 20th.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to get drafted and be 20 for several months before, he can celebrate that in traditional ways. He had 1,500 yards this year, 117 catches, 10 touchdowns. And they did it against Penn State and Texas A&M. Those are the two. I was like, I better watch those games.
Yeah. That was the big talking point, was the production profile. And then you realize they played big time programs, and he had big time numbers in both.
That seam catch against Penn State early in the game, I'm like, this is the first game I watched. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't know if I was going to get a dump and run tight end or something. Right. I had no idea what I was getting. I saw that play, and then Texas A&M, some crazy yards after catch plays.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, he's a straightforward and very difficult evaluation at the same time, where, I mean, obviously he's a talented receiver. There's good route running moments. He's got some clapping tendencies, but he's been very consistent catching the football, the body control, really good with the ball in his hands in kind of a unique way, with his ability to be twitchy up top, and has some level of acceleration. But I wonder about this overall athletic profile. I don't think you can watch this guy and not feel like he's not super tight in his lowers. He's just very straight legged, tight in his lowers. And it's man, your profile and the plays that you make don't make sense necessarily for some of the physical restrictions I think you have.
And I feel like he's got a short torso, but long legs. He's high hipped. And I think that complicates and compounds what you're talking about. But he played in high school. You go back to high school. He was defensive back, wide receiver, punt returner.
Right.
Then you get early on in the tape at Bowling Green, and he's getting direct snaps in the backfield. Like he's got like a little bit of the Tyler Warren versatility direct snap package on their short yardage stuff. Just get your best.
Saw him throw a pass.
Mm-hmm. So
maybe he threw more than one. I only saw him throw one.
There is like some very unique versatility opportunities that I don't think are necessarily going to all be relevant reps. But the run after catch profile that exists here, I think, is the easiest way to reconcile the athlete and the playmaker with potential at the NFL level.
Right. And even as a route runner, like I see him run good in breakers, right? Like in being flexed out and like legitimately winning on a post. It's like, okay. Boy, like the make you miss that he showed against Texas A&M, you're like, okay, dude.
Which is a little weird for a tighter wound athlete.
Does this feel like if Sean Payton can't get Colston Loveland in the first round, you just wait and get this guy as his joker? Is he that type of like profile?
Yeah, because his perimeter usage doubled in 2024. So like played more on the outside as a big body guy. I think he's got good linear speed, open field speed. You mentioned the ability to get up the seam that exists. And then the fact that he can play off of that with all these inbreakers and the catch radius and the comfort in that area of the field. And then you can have counter punches off of that with where you line him up to just get him the ball in space on the underneath stuff. I don't think he's as, if you had to put a percentage of like the amount of stuff you could do with Harold Fannin that you could simultaneously do with Colston Loveland, is it 80%?
Yeah, I think probably.
Like you're getting an 80% version of Colston Loveland with Harold Fannin, but not as loose of a player, or I don't think his ball skills are as strong as Loveland's is. Is that fair?
I think that's pretty fair. I love my comp for him. I don't know. Do you have one?
I do. Who do you have?
Juwan Johnson.
Okay.
The player he's kind of become for the Saints, like plays out wide in the slot, some backfield reps, tight end, competitive blocker. You know, like that's the thing. I was like, I don't know that Fannin's not going to make his hay blocking, but he tries really hard for a small
try.
Yeah, yep. I mean, I could appreciate that.
I kind of lean more into the run after catch profile for what I see him being. I had Jonnu Smith,
future Miami Dolphins tight end,
Ring of Honor.
Yeah,
remember?
It's funny. I saw somebody say that the other day. It's like, all right, well, eventually this guy's just going to go to Miami and replace Jonnu Smith. Jonnu's, I don't know. Jonnu probably has more athleticism overall, I would think. But the same run after catch ability definitely exists.
Mm-hmm. And they're built fairly similarly too. I think Jonnu's probably a little looser than Harold is. But I think Harold can kind of create middle of the field separation a little bit more on the lens of like the Juwan Johnson, who has a background that was a little bit more of like an authentic receiving profile detached from the core.
You know, I think one other thing that I want to make sure we get to with Fannin is I thought as a route runner overall, there was some savvy, whether that was being able to stack and leave against man coverage or like feeling zone and knowing where to make himself available. I thought he was really quarterback friendly. And I do like that about him, you know, as a guy that certainly had his fair share of like short completions and creating after the catch. I also saw a guy that can get open down the field as well. And I thought there was like a savviness with his ability to find space and make himself available.
Teams that run blank personnel will be the best fit for Harold Fannin.
That run 11.5 personnel.
Oh, good answer. So 12. Yeah. Right.
Right?
Like he can't be your only tight end on the field. And because then you got to try to block with 5 in the run game.
Or you just have a 6th offensive lineman for 25% of your snaps. I've seen that.
But then you're in jumbo 12.
I know a certain team that's perfectly fine living in that world.
Totally sweet. But be a 12 team if you're going to draft Harold Fannin. Don't be an 11 team, because then you're getting a really narrow utilization window.
Yeah. And I think that hurts the valuation, right? Where you just there's other things you're going to have in place to really maximize him, but I think he can be a weapon. And you could say so many things about where he gets drafted, and I'd probably believe you. And the combine's going to be big for him, just like I think it'll be big for Jared Ivey and potentially big for the next guy, Jacob Parrish, corner for Kansas State. Talk about him next. Stick with us. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
So who graded higher between Fannin and Ivey? You have to be prepared for these questions every show. We do problem prospects now. Just because we won't jigsaw it together.
They're pretty close. I have Ivey graded higher.
Okay. I have the same grade, but Ivey ranked higher amongst having the same grade.
They're obviously on opposite sides of the ball, but like you can put them through the lens of, hey, I can see how this player can make an impact, but there has to be other things in place with your personnel to maximize what they bring.
And I feel like Ivey has more pathways, which is why I put him in front of Fannin.
Yeah, for sure.
Jacob Parrish, cornerback, Kansas State, 5'09", 196 verified, a junior who was participant at the Senior Bowl as a junior. He is from Olathe, Kansas. He played high school football for Olathe North High School. Was a multi-position player who played running back, wide receiver, and defensive back, while also lettering in basketball and track and field. Joe, he ran a 10.4 in the 100-meter.
State champion, right? Twice.
That's right. It's not, oh my God, that's the fastest kid alive, super bad kind of fast, but 10.4 that's a pretty good speed.
Go run 100 meters and see how long it takes you, folks. A little further than you think it's going to be.
So this is a guy who I think athletically gets slept on a little bit because he's tiny, or relatively tiny.
I don't know about this tiny, man.
He's short.
He's just a little bit short. Yeah.
It starts with 5'09". That's gonna be off-putting.
7. At least that last number is 7.
He's 5'10", but it's still gonna be off-putting because people want 6'2" corners with 32-inch arms and play press man on the outside.
Well, he can do all those things. He's just a little shorter. His length is fine. You wish it was a little longer, but it's fine. DJ Reed's literally the same size as this guy. Cam Taylor-Britt's the same size as this guy. We're like, okay, he's 196 pounds with 31.25-inch arms. So if he's 6 foot, 190 pounds with 31-inch arms, he's fine. You know what I mean?
You're preaching the gospel to me. You don't got to talk.
Because I spent a lot of time this morning working through like body comparisons, and I'm like, I don't know. Like Derek Stingley is literally what I just described. 6 foot, 190 pounds with the same length. So there's a dense build here, and I think that helps him. I think that density helps him with his ability to play press coverage and be like that compactness. I think really does help him. Also with the tackling that shows up. I don't know, man. I struggle with the I get it that he's short, but I don't know about the rest is fine.
So I think on the outside, when the geometry of playing at that position, and I'd really love for Joe to hear this. If you're not watching on YouTube, Joe just disappeared. So I'm going to filibuster until Joe comes back. But Joe, the geometry of the position, when you're playing on the outside of ball trajectory and angles, when it's coming in on shots down the field, for example, if you're playing in phase and in the trail position, I think length or stature, height is a relatively, I don't think it's a nothing burger to be concerned about playing in phase and man coverage as a shorter player, because the ball trajectory can.
You saw that catch up with them. Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah,
so I think that it is a it's a relevant talking point for Jacob Parrish. But for me, there's so much other good stuff here that it's kind of dude I want on my football team, with the play style, demeanor, the physicality, the density, like you mentioned, the tackling ability, the run support stuff, plays press. Like, man, I was blown away when I watched tape for a guy that nobody's talking about.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. There's a lot to like about this player, and that's why we're not talking about a first round grade, right? That's because there are some missing components here. His older brother was a wrestler at Nebraska. I thought that was an interesting nugget to his profile as well. But I do think that the coverage instincts do shine, like ability to mirror and match, even sometimes in zone, like working from that half turn, playing thirds or quarters. Like, he looks pretty savvy to me. I maybe wish there was a little more ball, like the ball skills are a little bit better. I think maybe that's where some of the height shows up, where he's just a little off, right? Like he doesn't have a huge wingspan. But man, instinctively he's there. I think athletically he's there. He's very physical. If you want to play press, you want to live in cover one, you want to like play him on an island, I think he's going to be fine in those roles. Like I could definitely see a Flores defense loving to get a guy like this.
Did he remind you of anybody? Did he remind you of anybody mildly irresponsible?
Well, I think the problem, you said that to me, and I was like, okay, I was searched for it a little bit, and then I just came back to like, I just think he's DJ Reed. That's the name that I went with. Like size, like man coverage, willing to like mix it up, like strain, contests everything. Like that's the vibe I got.
If you take all of that with a player who maybe you wish had a little bit better ball production, tackles well.
I don't know who's that.
You may or may not have made a bold.
McDuffie.
You may or may not have made a bold bet about this guy getting a pick this year.
Wait, it's not McDuffie? Didn't I bet him?
It is.
Oh, Trent McDuffie. Okay.
Do you not get a little bit of Trent McDuffie vibes?
Whew.
Right.
Man, I felt no, I like Jacob Parrish, but I felt things when I watched Trent McDuffie at Washington. Like easy player to love.
Trent's, I think, got better foot speed, transitional quickness, but I think that is a strength of Parrish's game. It's just not like the special element that makes Trent at times Trent. But if you told me he plays inside and is often can live in the nickel early in his career, like
that's why I struggle with him. Like I don't label him a slot only. Like I get it if you think that's his best stuff.
I'm saying like he could be a really dangerous player in the nickel because he fits the run, because he's super physical, because the dude freaking inserted against Nub and tackled Cam Scatabo and didn't give up yards after contact.
Yeah, he's got those reps, but he come on now. He's got a little bit of latch tendency too, right? Where he wants to like get to the side and pull guys down by their legs. Like he's got that on the menu as well.
But he doesn't have great length, right? So the wrap up ability is what it is.
I think we have him pegged though correctly for a pressure defense. Like that's
because you're either going to play press and disrupt the timing, or you can play leveraged off over top with eyes in the backfield, and you have enough transitional pop that you can attack the ball.
Yeah. So Chiefs, Lions, Vikings. This is going to be a player for your team.
Where do you have him grading? I can tell you I have the same grade on Parish as I do the other two players.
They're very close. They're all with Kyle. They're honest to God, they're all within 15 spots on the board. Measurables are gonna. I mean, that pushes him down a little bit, but I think he's a rock solid, like middle of day 2 pick. Like that's kind of the range I have for him.
Okay.
I haven't done a lot of players that I think are going to be like his true peers on the board yet, if that makes sense. So what number on your board is he?
So I have Jared Ivey 55, I have Jacob Parrish 57, and I have Harold Fannin 58.
I got to round out. I got to fill out the board a little bit more.
That's fine, but what order do you have these three?
I have it Ivey, Fannin, and Parish, but I could see Parish jumping Fannin for sure.
Okay. Well, you've got to finalize a board, and that's what the weeks ahead have for Joe Marino.
And this is only like the 4th corner I've watched as well.
Yeah,
I've done Johnson. Well, I guess if Hunter's one, Johnson, Revel, Morrison, and this is the next corner. So I got a lot of corners to watch.
We got to get Jahdae Barron.
Yeah,
we got to get
Florida State dude.
Azaria Thomas.
Didn't rank too well on Kyle Crabbs' board though.
Darian Porter. We got to get Maxwell Hairston. Yeah. We got a lot. The work continues, and we'll bring it to you throughout the course of the next couple of weeks and months. Kyle Crabbs, Joe Marino, we appreciate you guys as always for checking out the show. Make it a great rest of your Wednesday. We will be back again tomorrow with more NFL coverage as we are floating along through the NFL Combine. Hope to see you then.